Welcome to the next episode of our Ag+Bio+Science Podcast, presented by AgriNovus Indiana and Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick, the host of Inside Indiana Business, also the host of this weekly podcast where we have in-depth conversations with the leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs in Indiana's Ag+Bio+Science sector, the sector where food, agriculture, science, and technology converge. This week, we are continuing our virtual podcast and are excited to have with us David Roberts. David is the Chief Innovation Officer at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. And David, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Gerry. Pleasure to be here.
The title Chief Innovation Officer, I think it kind of explains itself, but in the context of working for the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and that lead agency in terms of generating jobs and investment for the state, tell us about what the Chief Innovation Officer does.
Yeah, day to day is a lot of different challenges. Sometimes it's just a full-time job keeping up with emails and phone calls, and especially right now, video conferences. But really, the IEDC has the privilege of serving Indiana and helping create the opportunity for Hoosiers to have jobs, prosper in a diverse economy. And the piece of the action that I get to participate in is in that attraction and investment in the jobs of tomorrow, really helping support also small businesses. So entrepreneurship and innovation go hand in hand here at the IEDC. We're helping those young innovators and business startups attract capital, but really also then having the pleasure of fostering culture and resources that support innovation entrepreneurship here in the state.
One of your roles now, very importantly, is you're on the team that is focused on PPE, the personal protective equipment needed in the fight against the coronavirus, and helping to collect that from businesses and organizations all over the state of Indiana. It's been quite an outreach from the business community.
Yeah, it's an honor really to be able to contribute during this difficult time. We've seen just in an unprecedented challenge, we've seen really amazing response from Hoosiers throughout the state. Businesses have pivoted and transitioned a lot of their capacity into producing whatever they can in this short amount of time. We've seen especially face shields and gowns. We've seen folks with mask making capability step forward. There's a difference between what's a critical care N95 or KN95 certified mask versus those that are more appropriate for everyday use or non-critical applications. But we're buying whatever we can get on hand. We've seen a ton of companies like Toyota and FCA donating PPE. I think all told, we've purchased a little over 1.9 million pieces of PPE. And then with donations, we're up around 2.5 million. But, we've dipped down into those strategic reserves. So we're going to stay on that job for a while now. Thankfully, the IEDC was able to contribute in this way. And we've got a great team here led by Secretary Schellinger, and Luke Basso, Chief of Staff, has really been stepping up on that effort.
David, there's a lot of momentum around Indiana's Ag+Bio+Sciences sector, to be clear. It's obvious. IEDC sees this as an innovation cluster and a real growth opportunity. Talk about this in terms of that innovation economy as it relates to the Ag+Bio+Sciences and how Indiana is positioned for continued growth.
Yeah, just taking a story from the headlines we saw out of South Dakota, Smithfield Foods had to shut down their plant because of coronavirus outbreak with many of their workers. And I think it illustrates the need really for us to embrace technology, because when we are too dependent on the traditional way of doing things, it really puts even our food supply at risk. So the more that we can integrate technology, whether it's automation, IoT, remote control, data analytics, it's important. And we see that happening in Indiana. I'll give you two quick examples of where we've seen that. Elanco is a huge player in the state, as you know, and we've seen them harnessing AI to develop new antibiotics for pigs. They're using intellectual property for probiotic feed for chickens. We've even seen them leveraging IoT for tighter connections with customers, ranging from Brazilian cattle farmers to American veterinarians. And so we've been really proud of the role that they play among several others, Talpolina, EnviroCure, Solintech. And a fun one, though, that I want to make sure I mention is we had the Innovate Within competition. It's our third year for high school businesses to pitch their business plan. And I know you've been a big part of that the last 2 years when we could do that in person, but we went entirely virtual this year. And while they didn't take top prize, a student down in Seymour, Indiana, received the People's Choice Award for his business called Aquapon. He's using some proprietary filtering technology and methodology to bring together raising fish and raising leaf vegetables based on the fish waste. So it's really just a neat story of entrepreneurship here in the state.
You mentioned some companies, Talpolino, EnviroCure, Solintech, Inari, a number of companies investing in the state. As As you continue to showcase Indiana to these companies and many others looking to grow, how important is that story of innovation in showing that Indiana as a state is a place where innovation occurs?
I think it's critical. I've been one that believes that innovation is a great equalizer. So among states and among countries, you have some historic advantages and some challenges that folks face. In Indiana, first of all, agricultural has always been a part of our storyline over history. But what innovation does is it allows a state like Indiana to compete with anybody, anywhere in the world. It allows that small startup, it allows that global company to operate right here, to employ Hoosiers, and to compete with anybody, anywhere. So innovation is critical to the storyline. And, I'll tell you, AgriNovus has been a tremendous partner in getting that story out. I've been at the IEDC now going on 3 years. And when I first got here, AgriNovus was really coming strong into the narrative, and Beth, under her leadership, was really promoting that storyline in a big, big way. It's just been great to see the participation from historical companies like the Elanco and Beck's hybrids to the newcomers like the Solenspec coming in from Brazil about a year and a half ago.
Certainly, AgriNovus very involved in talent and workforce development. Talk about your perspective, Dave, on talent, because innovation, you need that talent to fuel innovation. How would you assess the talent equation right now in Indiana when it comes to innovation, especially in the ag-bioscience sector?
Well, I think every state is dealing with some challenges on this front. We're understanding that challenge better and better every day, and we're facing it head on, though. And I really think that we're as strong as anybody in terms of how to approach and tackle that challenge. I can't overstate the importance of what AgriNovus, especially with the partnership with FFA, has done. Being able to bring that talent into the state every single year has been huge for us. And the last 2 years, then, we've had the opportunity to highlight innovation in ag during that FFA conference. And I just think that's a tremendous asset that no other state has. I really feel bullish on where we are. I think it's important to keep the focus on that, though. And we love the academics, at Purdue and others that help us. But really, AgriNovus is helping us get that word out there in a big, big way.
I know Governor Holcomb, Secretary of Commerce, Jim Schellinger as well, and others were well into the planning for the first Indiana Global Economic Summit. It was planned for this spring, had to be postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you give us an idea or an update, if you would, on IDC's plans for this Global Economic Summit?
Yeah, and Gerry, I think it was really designed to be a highlight for taking Indiana to the world and bringing the world back to Indiana. Secretary Schellinger really, I think, put his full emphasis behind this over the last year, really bringing some headliners to that opportunity. But, in light of what's going on in the world, it just is a smart decision to delay that. And we had several folks, lined up to come that have committed to still coming whenever that happens, and we're playing it by ear. We've got to look at what the data shows us in terms of when we can get back together in community and conventions with each other. This is a priority, and we'll get this rescheduled very soon. So please stay tuned on that one.
David Roberts is the Chief Innovation Officer at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. David, thanks for joining us on the podcast and for your great perspectives and for all you do for the state of Indiana as well. And thank you for joining us this week on the Ag+Bio+Science Podcast. It is a weekly production partnership between AgriNovus Indiana and Inside Indiana Business. And you can keep up to date with AgriNovus by following them on Twitter and Instagram at agrinovusIN. You can also find AgriNovus on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, don't forget to leave us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts so we can share more great ag biosciences stories like this one. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerry Dick, and remember, Indiana, we're all in this together.
This podcast is a product of Inside Indiana Business, hosted by Gerry Dick, produced by Bridget O'Reilly, Libby Fritz, and Joe Ullery. More people get Indiana business news from Inside Indiana Business than any other source.